What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Ben Thomas Show. Thanks for coming back. Guys, we have another episode of this or that because we've got Batman here, the 2.0 version, and of course, we got to look at the previous version and see if this one is actually worth spending the money on, upgrading to, or is your wallet safe? Can you stick with the original? So guys, stick around. If you like the video, hit the like button, smash the subscribe if you're new to the Ben Thomas Show, and let's get into it.
I give you Ben Thomas Showtime. Here we go.
Okay, everybody, welcome back. So I think, let's be honest here, I think this is going to be the year of Hot Toys enhancements because I think for the most part, we're not seeing much in the way of Marvel content. We're not seeing much in the way of Star Wars content. So a revisiting of past releases, I think, is going to happen more and more as the year goes on. So that's why I wanted to do this video today, because this Batman, this is the original figure, well, two of the original figures, because the originals, you needed to buy two different figures to get both looks. The newest figure, at least the deluxe version, you get a chance to have it all in one box. But this past figure came out in 2017, at least the battle damaged one. So that's a 7-year gap. But does it still hold up in your collection? Is this one that you need to upgrade to, especially if you own either one or both of the originals? Now, it's also worthy of mentioning, and I don't have a slide for it today, but we also had a black chrome version of this figure at one point, which was also really cool looking, I will admit. But when we are looking at the old figure now, of course, it still looks pretty good, but immediately you're starting to see the differences here, right? The clean version or the non-battle damaged version. This newer 2.0 definitely sees the battle damage increasing. You see a lot more of that scarring on the armor, which is cool. The lighting is a little bit different here, so it's hard to tell if they've changed the color of the figure slightly, or again, if that's just a photography effect. A little bit hard to say at this point. I will say, again, the presence of this figure has always been really something that stood out to me. While Ben Affleck's Batman isn't necessarily my Batman, I'm still a Christian Bale guy, I will admit that for sure, and I really liked Pattinson's version as well. Batfleck has a special place in my heart, but I never liked the fact that he was wielding guns. I didn't necessarily feel like Nolan's version of, Batman can't kill at all was something that needed to happen either, but there were two sides of that extreme, and I didn't love that about the Affleck Batman. But in terms of collectibles, the first figure I had of this guy was this armory suit. Now, I had it years ago, and I sold it because I was switching over kind of my focus of my line. I wanted to start collecting more of the Dark Knight trilogy, and so I sold it at the time. Now, this is a quick look at a side-by-side between the new figure on the left and the older figure on the right. And the new figure is MMS 743 versus 349. So, there's a lot of models in between these lines, and some people say, well, it's still not time for a reissue. But again, that's a lot of years in between. I can understand why collectors are happy to see this coming. Now, I think this, again, is the moneymaker figure. So let's make some clarity remarks here. Originally, you could only buy the battle damage version on its own, or you could get the, non-battle damage version on its own. If you wanted both looks, you had to collect both figures. Now Hot Toys, with the deluxe version of this new figure, because there is a standard that just once again gives you the non-battle damage look, but the deluxe version comes with both looks in the same box. So technically you don't need two figures. And they've made a couple of improvements. On the right, you see the original battle damaged look. Now, I always liked that Ben Affleck sculpt, to be honest. I do think it looks like him under the armored cowl. But it wasn't actually accurate to the scene, which is interesting. In that scene, his eyepiece isn't glowing, it is smashed out, and you can see his eyeball through. The new figure does have the rolling eye system, so you can have him looking in multiple directions, but it's also more accurate to the scene. The battle damage is also really, really strong on the cowl. Now, I'll remark later, but there is die cast on the new figure. Now, to be honest, I feel like that's a bit gimmicky for this figure, because he's already such a bulky boy. I don't know why that's necessarily an upgrade, but I don't mind the fact that they've added it as long as it doesn't hit the price point too aggressively. When we're thinking back to 2017, again, this is going back 7 years ago, so it's about time. I don't really see a lot of differences in the armor. I know that there are die-cast pieces on the new one, but in terms of the sculpting, it is very, very similar. The new one is clearly a little bit more bulky. The new one also does come with the USB Kryptonite Spear, and I think that's really cool. It's a great inclusion, especially if you can light it. Now, I still have an issue with the way the USB is working. I do find that the battery pack on the back of the figure is really clunky, and you still have to deal with wires. In my collection, I'm gonna have a really friggin' hard time running all these wires for all the different figures that are gonna suddenly start being able to light up for us. So I really wish Hot Toys would adopt either like a rechargeable inside, even a base that you at least light up. But I also want to talk one last thing about the base, because the base lately, like the base game lately from Hot Toys, I think has been pretty good in terms of the artistry. I think that they look really nice. But because this guy's such a hulking figure, with such a small square footprint, I worry that you won't be able to pose him all that well. Now, is that a huge issue for most collectors? Honestly, not for a lot. Most of us have our figures now in pretty relatively prone conditions. You can stand him up in this, obviously, and to be honest, he's not the most posable figure to begin with anyways. They do say here that he's got improved articulation and improved weathering effects, but again, he's not the most posable. But with such a small footprint on that base, I would be worried of either tipping off or just not really getting a really natural looking standing position, I guess, if that makes sense. So for that, it's kind of a non-thing for me. I would want the deluxe version, not for the base, but for the upgrades to the figure and for the ability to display both looks. Now, I do think that the question remains, is this worthy of the upgrade though? Like, even with some of the improvements that we're seeing here in the 2.0, definitely in the paint apps, definitely in the battle damage, the diecast is interesting, but again, I do feel is unnecessary at this point for this figure. The lighting is an upgrade as well over batteries, but if you're not one to plug this in, then is it that much of an upgrade at this point? It's a so-so upgrade for me. Is this worth trading up for if you already have the previous version? I almost want to say no, but except for one piece. I never really loved the mouthpieces on my original battle damaged one. To be honest, he just kind of had too neutral of an expression. I do like the new expression a lot more. It looks a little bit more like he's actually battling, which is cool. But is that still enough for me to choose an upgrade? If I had the original at this point still, I would say honestly, no. I don't think it would be worth the upgrade. I think there's going to be a lot of cool stuff coming out this year. Unless this figure, you either don't have it, you missed it originally, or you have to have it because you're the biggest Batfleck fan possible, I think the original is still very well suited to most people's collections. The likeness on that Affleck is really good. This one, I think if you're going to pull the trigger on this, go all in. Get the deluxe on this one. This is one of those figures where I think that the deluxe upgrades are going to be worth the extra price tag because you really can get two looks out of the same figure. And again, previously Hot Toys made you buy two figures to get these looks. So for that, I think that's actually a win for this 2.0. And in that sense, if maybe you only had one of those original versions, this is still, I think, a great buy to be able to pair with that original. But guys, I have to ask you, is it this, or is it that, or is it both? What one are you going to choose? Do you have the original and are you upgrading? Or do you maybe only have one of the originals and now this is going to give you that second look for your Batfleck collection? I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments down below, but if you liked the video, hit the like button, smash the subscribe if you're new to the Ben Thomas Show, and we'll catch you guys on the next video. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Wow, what a great audience. Be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, because subscribing makes you feel good.
In case I don't see ya, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.